All right, folks, the last time we talked to Michael Sweet was right ahead of the new Stryper album, and now we have even more exciting news, a self-produced solo album called I'm Not Your Suicide, and an autobiography, which just, oh man, this is incredible. I mean, Poison, Molly Crew, White Snake Stories, but also Jimmy Swaggart, Chris Jericho, Larry the Cable Guy. Wow. What a legacy and a lifetime Michael Sweet has lived, and he shares with it in his autobiography. We're going to talk to him about that. Michael, how are you?
I'm doing good. You should have opened that with the last time we should have talked to Michael Sweet was a week ago.
No worries. No worries ever, brother. Hey, listen, we are all juggling a lot of different things, and this is some exciting time, man. This is a new solo album. Tell us a little bit about the album and kind of what inspired you to put out another one.
Well, I'm always writing and nonstop pretty much, and I've always got a song in my head. And I just wanted to, I felt like, since officially and technically speaking, the last solo album came out in 2000, which was the album Truth. I did release one called Hymns and one called Touch, but those weren't official releases. Those are things that I did on my own and put out on my own. So technically speaking, it was, 14 years since I really put out an official album, and I just felt like it was long overdue. I had a bunch of ideas, a bunch of songs, and a lot of those songs are different from the typical Stryper style, and I wanted to get them down and get them out there for people.
What exactly do you draw from that's differently when you're writing for, let's say, Stryper versus writing for yourself?
Well, I have the freedom to try different things that certainly wouldn't fit, or most people would not want them to fit on a quote-unquote Stryper album. Stryper's known for that edgy, real high-octane, in-your-face style. And on the solo album, I was able to do songs like This Time and How to Live and Coming Home. I went into the country territory just a little bit with steel guitar and some of those overtones. And, I grew up on country. A lot of people don't know that. It's not some rock metal guy trying to do country, but I was raised around it and grew up around it, and really how I cut my teeth. My dad's a country singer-songwriter, and so is my mom.
It's an amazing legacy, and just another great album that can be added to the Michael Sweet repertoire. And it was great that it comes out at the same time that you put together this autobiography, and you start to really dig into 30 years, man. 30 years. Are we that old, man? We
are that old. I know. It's weird. You blink and you wake up and you're 51, and it's crazy. But it's what's exciting at the same time. The flip side of that coin is we're getting older, but yet at the same time, we're still doing it, and it just feels good to be able to say that and go out and still be able to stand on stage after stage and tell people about God and sing and perform and hopefully do it well. And so far, the reviews seem to echo that and say that very thing. So I'm excited about it.
Well, the book really deals with a lot of different characters, a lot of different aspects of your life. You deal with sort of that, 90s big bands, talking about Metallica and Rat and all that kind of stuff. And is there a story in particular that as you put this book together, you're like, oh man, this is one I really got to tell people may not even believe this?
Well, I mean, there were a number of stories in there that I wanted. It was very important for me to have them in the book. Obviously, a few of those right off the bat were stories like, why did Tim not play on two of our albums? And primarily and most important, the To Hell with the Devil album.
Right.
And that's been a question that people have asked for years, and we've never really answered it in depth, and I wanted to make sure I took the opportunity to do that with the book. Why I left the band, when I was in the band, a lot of the stories that, happened, I talk about the Glass Eye story, which is one of the most unique and bizarre stories I've ever, lived. And just all my encounters, being raised on the streets of Sunset Boulevard and not in the church, which I think is surprising to a lot of people. People just assume because we're a band that's comprised of Christians that we were raised in the church, and we weren't. And that's why we do things like we do them. Very different. We kind of march to our own beat and have our own calling, and it's very unusual.
Well, speaking of unusual, there's no way I could escape with that, at least let listeners know, because to connect the dots between Michael Sweet of Stryper and Larry the Cable Guy is not an easy fit, but that's definitely an entertaining one, to say the least.
It is. I got a phone call from Larry, and I was in the hospital at the time when my wife was sick, and I was in the hospital, and Larry called me and just said, obviously I was very shocked and thrown off by it. And he said, I'm a huge fan. And he said, there's only one person that I was almost as nervous to call, but I think I'm even more nervous calling you, and that was Bill Cosby. And I thought, wow, and he just went on to say what a huge fan he was. He grew up on our music, and he still to this day air guitars to our songs before every performance to get them pumped up.
That's pretty awesome. That in and of itself is an incredible testimony and legacy right there, right?
It is pretty cool, and it's those surprises, like who would think that Larry's a fan, or Chris Jericho's a fan, or Mike Ringren from Disturbed's a fan, or just so many different people we've met over the years that out of nowhere say, I saw you guys 10 times, I have a Bible, or I used to be in a Stryper cover band, or it's just crazy.
And
I just ran into Seven Dust, and we were flying on the same plane, and they were waiting for me when we got off the plane, and they said they were big fans, and I told them, gosh, that's amazing, and we got pictures, and Clint Lowry said he learned how to play guitar to our music, and these things that you just don't know that you find out as life goes on that are mind blowing.
The one thing I think is also really cool to this, and now that you're doing the solo album and the book too, it kind of really helps rejuvenate the new generation to who Stryper is, who Michael Sweet was and is, because of YouTube and Netflix and all this other stuff. Man, there's no walls anymore, man. You can sit at home on your Blu-ray player, pull up YouTube right there, and show your friends all these incredible music videos from the '90s. Start connecting dots for people, and what we grew up with is a little bit different than this. So it's really, really cool that you're able to put so much meat in there for people to get their head around.
It is. It's really amazing. And with the good comes the bad. And the bad thing about that is, if you're sick and you have your worst show ever, it's on YouTube an hour later.
Sure.
So
sure.
There's good and bad, but that's the way you spread the word these days. Social networking, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. And it's a different age we live in. And, we didn't have those things back in the 80s. It was all about just word of mouth and, putting your picture on the cover of a magazine and hoping and praying that people show up. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah, I remember those days. And you also really get into sort of the heart-wrenching side of your life and some difficult times, talking about losing your wife and some things like that. And how difficult is it, to pluck that out of your past and then revisit it, and then also share it in the right way that you feel comfortable doing?
Well, it was difficult because it's a fine line. I didn't want to. My hopes and goals were to encourage people that might be going through the same thing. Because there are many people who are or who have gone through the same thing. They've lost their spouse, and it's one of the most difficult things we can face on earth. And then not just that side of it, but when you have children, and you're raising children that no longer have their mother, it's just really, it's hard to put into words, it really is, and it a lot of it still doesn't make sense, but that's the beauty of being a Christian is blind faith. You just kind of, you got to have that faith and trust and believe that God has a plan, and in the end, we're all going to know what that plan is.
Yeah, absolutely. And when we spoke last time, you really were so just honest about your faith and the different struggles that we all go through. But you go days without reading your Bible and those kinds of things. So,
oh yeah.
Now, how is it now? Now you're writing a book, another album, and all that. How do you sort of keep to the daily grind, so to speak, of keeping your nose in the Word, encouraging yourself, and those kinds of things?
Well, you know what? It's interesting. I'll tell you, the one thing in my life, the one constant that keeps me close to God and rooted and devoted to God is music. So in other words, when I write a song, I go to the Word.
Yeah.
I go to prayer. And I write songs daily. So, music is the thing that God's given me to keep him and I deep in our relationship. And That's really amazing. It's really cool. So that's my salvation. I mean, music, of course, God through music is my salvation. And music is really, I said this on Twitter not long ago, it saved my life so many times. When I was young in school, it kept me from getting jumped and beat up. And it's gotten me to where I am today. So it's just so cool.
It absolutely is. And folks, you can get more information about I'm Not Your Suicide, the new solo album, the autobiography. I don't even know if I said the name. Honestly, My Life and Stryper Revealed, an amazing autobiography that really deals with 30 years, man. 30 years still blows my mind every time I
Unreal.
think about that. And just incredible names in the stories that are there and outlaid. And you can get more information at michaelsweet.com, stryper.com. And Michael is an avid tweeter, man. He is Twitter nuts, man. Are you not? You got to admit.
I am. I mean, I tweet, and you walk that fine line of tweeting too much and annoying people. But here's my personality. I'm a very excited person. If you were to hang out with me for a day, I'd be like, oh wow, look at that, and I got to get a picture of that, and then I'd tweet that picture because it's just my personality. Like, I love to live life to the fullest and to show everyone around me what I'm living, what I'm doing. So it's a big part of the reason why I'm so into Twitter and Facebook is to keep people up with the latest, and I love to do that.
And I think this is why I really love the book. The book is so much of that comes through, from Jimmy Swaggart to Don Imus. It's like, man, look at what happened. It's not about look at who I know or anything like that. It's more of just capturing this story and what you went through. And it's a really, really cool journey. And I don't even know how to thank you so much for including us on this and spending time with us talking about all this. And I don't know.
And I appreciate it. That's really nice of you. And the book's exciting. I tried to bare my soul and my heart, but yet at the same time not be hurtful, and that was a fine line. Last thing I wanted to do was hurt anyone in the band or anyone involved in those stories, and it was really difficult to not do that. And my goal, as I said earlier, in writing the book, as I penned each word and reread and edited and did all these things, it was to inspire people. My hopes and goals were to, when someone reads a book, hopefully they're going to write me back and say, wow, I really got something out of the book.
Yeah.
And so far, that's what I'm reading.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. It's just awesome.
And that's what you're going to hear, bro. It's such a good book, and it's such a good read, folks. If you got to get a copy, we'll link to obviously his website's there, but you got to get a copy, man. You got to get a copy for yourself. And Michael, when you make it down to Florida, man, you got to hit Central Florida up, man. Hook us up, man. My wife will go bonkers to meet you face to face. But
we will hook you up. We'll hook you up, and you guys come out and see us, and we will be there soon enough. Okay?
Yeah, right. Yeah, sounds good, man. And thank you again for fitting us into your schedule, folks. It's a solo album, self-produced, called I'm Not Your Suicide. Check that out. YouTube video will be linked to the website version of this interview, as well as the autobiography, Honestly, My Life and Stryper Revealed. Michael Sweet, folks. Thank you again, Mike. Take care.
Okay, brother. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.